our administrators and our leaders in the White House, in DC, this is the direction that they're taking us. They want to control our thoughts. They
Well,
want to control our feelings.
they are destroying or contributing to the breakdown of the nuclear family so the government can replace it. Hi, Riley. Thank you so much for being with us today. I know the people who are watching my social media are going to be excited to hear from you.
Oh my gosh, no, thank you for having me on. Really, to talk to someone who is so accomplished and just really so inspiring to me. I'm so excited, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So, speaking of accomplished and inspiring, I recently heard you speak and I knew that you were an accomplished athlete, but I had no idea at quite the level. Can you run down some of your resume for our friends and listeners?
Absolutely. I would love to because I feel like a lot of the times this kind of get lost. This gets lost in the mix of all of the things I'm doing, but really, I proudly finished my career as a 12-time NCAA All-American, a 5-time SEC champion. I'm actually the SEC record holder in the 200 butterfly, 2-time Olympic trial qualifier. I'm the SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year, SEC Community Service Leader of the Year. Again, all things that I will forever be proud of, and really my greatest memories I've ever had sharing that with my teammates and really having that hard work pay off. So
That's great. So impressive. And it's as a woman old enough to be your mother, it's so encouraging and inspiring to see the younger generations who are taking these things seriously. So thank you for your years of dedication and commitment to that, really.
absolutely. It's
Can you can you
it's a lifelong journey.
oh yeah, yeah, it just never ends. I mean, not that it's anywhere near the same level, but Tom and I are very dedicated to fitness and a continued thing of working out and being the healthiest, best versions of ourselves we can be. Can you tell me, when did you first get a sense that the transgender issue was going to become problematic in ladies and women's swimming?
So the first time I'd really heard of this happening in sports, it was actually the other way around. It was a woman who was identifying as a man. It was a woman swimmer at Harvard who took the identity of a man and competed on the men's team. And so of course, I didn't necessarily support this, but I didn't see it as a huge threat because this was a woman competing with the man, with the men. When at the time I was just kind of like, okay, no one is under threat here. It really only hinders this woman's success that she can have because, of course, she's competing against men. So I thought nothing of it. And it never even crossed my mind that this would be really allowed to happen the other way because, of course, I knew testosterone levels and all of the things that give males advantage. I thought governing bodies would have rules in place so it couldn't happen the other way. But about November, middle of my senior year, so November of 2021, the NCAA really propelled this male swimmer, formerly Will Thomas, now goes by Lia Thomas. Lia started posting the nation leading times, ranking the fastest in the country. And again, at the time, I didn't know who this person was. I'm looking this person up, who is this? Until a few days later, an article was posted disclosing that Lia was formerly Will and swam 3 years on the men's team at University of Pennsylvania. And so I was shocked, of course, when I saw this, but really I was relieved because I saw that Will Thomas ranked the year prior 462nd among the men. And so I say I was relieved because I thought the NCAA would see it how I saw it, and not allow this person to compete with us at our national championships, which is the fastest meet in the world. But that's not how the NCAA saw it. And about 3 weeks before our national championships in March of 2022, the NCAA announced that Lia Thomas would, in fact, be competing with the women.
Gosh, unbelievable. That had to be like major shockwaves going through your community.
Yeah, there was a lot of feelings. Of course, it was this feeling of shock, but there was almost this sense of intriguement. We were kind of curious, what is this going to look like? We have never faced something like this. What is the media attention going to look like surrounding our sport? I think we all know swimming is not a sport that garners media attention. And so to have that spotlight on us, will this be a distraction? Which, of course, we knew it would be. So there was a feeling of intriguement, but it also was a feeling of belittlement. It felt like our feelings and our safety and our privacy and our dignity and our identity and our equal opportunities, and I could go on. It felt like those didn't matter. What mattered to the NCAA were the feelings of a male. That's what they prioritized over us, really using us as women as collateral damage in the process.
What do you think the NCAA and some of these other governing bodies are getting out of doing this to women?
It's classic virtue signaling. They want to be seen as progressive. They want to be seen as inclusive. When in reality, it's not progress. What's happening? It's
Mhm.
actually taking us back half a century in time to before Title IX, more than half a century. Of course, Title IX was enacted in 1972. And so 51 years from that, this is not progress. This is actually regressive. Of course, these institutions follow the money. And I think that's what this boils down to. They're not following the red or the blue, they're following the green.
Right.
Um, and that's the direction. I think that's what really propelled them and motivated them to go in the way that they did, and to really have an utter disregard for us as again women.
So I've seen instances where women have banded together and refused to compete. Have you seen that? What are your thoughts on that as a strategy for female athletes?
For the longest time I rejected it. I thought women should not compromise, women should not step down, women, there is, we shouldn't have to sacrifice anything that we've worked for. But I have changed my perspective on that, and I'll tell you what made me shift my perspective. Um, I thought legislation was how this would be fixed. We need states to pass laws. We need laws at the federal level so this doesn't happen. And so that's what I dedicated a lot of my time to, going state to state, going to Washington, D.C., and testifying on this. But I realized when this was introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives by Greg Steube, it was a Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, and it fell entirely on party lines. Every single Democrat, all 203 of them, voted no. They voted in opposition of protecting women and girls in sports. And that's when I realized this isn't something, of course, legislation fixes things, but too many girls are going to have to be hurt, injured in their sport. Too many girls are going to be exploited in the locker room. Too many girls are going to lose out on opportunities if we allow this to continue at the rate at which it is. Because these people, they don't really care about women. And of course, they do it in the guise of feminism, but they don't care about women. We need, as women, we need to step up ourselves, and we need to take back our sports. And so I most certainly do think boycotting is an effective way to make change. We've seen it throughout history, and we've seen how effective it is. We need that. We need these athletes of all levels, all sports, all across the country to band together and not compete when you have a man in your race. That being said, I think it would be powerful for men to boycott their races. I think there's a common acknowledgement that men's sports, they generate more revenue, they generate more attention. We need these men to step down, men with platforms to say
Mhm.
something, women with platforms. We need their voices now more than ever.
It's really frustrating when we have been fed a steady diet of believe all women, Me Too movement, and a very political and very cultural conversation going on about elevating the value of women. And the people who have been shouting these things from the rooftop are completely silent, or they are complicit in destroying opportunities for young women all across the country. And they're completely unapologetic about it. As a woman who's trying to help other women of all ages be the best version of themselves, I'm infuriated by what I'm seeing going on.
Absolutely. You're not alone in that feeling of frustration, really this feeling of helplessness too. I know you do everything you can. I feel like I'm doing everything I can. We need more people to have that feeling. Because ultimately, again, that's how changes are made. For too long, especially we as women, we like to be agreeable. We like to be apologetic. We like to be compassionate and have empathy and sympathy for these people who are going through struggles. Of course we do. Especially as Christians, that's how we like to be peacemakers. But that's how we've gotten here, is
Mm-hmm.
by denying this objective truth and by
A little
being
bit of
overly.
appeasement at a time. And it really
Yes,
is
yes,
as if, I was listening to you speak the other night and talking about how common sense and truth is under full assault. And I feel like the entire nation is going through this thing, and in particular, this issue where somebody needs to say the emperor has no clothes. Like nobody is saying it. It's so obvious what's going on. It's crazy.
absolutely. It's almost as if we're in this George Orwell novel where they're telling us 2 + 2 is 5. And if you don't say it, you're wrong. You're a bigot. You're all the labels
You're
that
going to
they'll
be
label
canceled.
you.
You're going to pay all those things.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have a lot of people that want to know, what can we do as individuals to help support you in this movement and all the young women across the country? What can we do?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I mentioned legislation, but really it is important. Thus far, we have had 22 states that have passed some sort of fairness in women's sports bill, 16 of which protecting all the way or kindergarten through college, which is great. But we know 22 states isn't even the majority of states. Know where your state stands. Contact your local state representative and state senator. Let them know how you feel. Let them know that this is an issue that matters to you, their constituent. That's crucial. Get involved. Be willing to step on toes and ruffle feathers. Your daughters need it. The women in your life, they need it. My message to parents, of course, what they can do, of course, defend your daughters. That's crucial. But secondly, I think it's even almost just as important to teach your sons masculinity.
Oh,
I feel
yeah,
like
absolutely.
we this conversation very quickly gets centered around girls and women naturally. But men are not clear here. We need men. We need men to fulfill their biblical role, which is to protect and provide. There's a saying, and I'm sure this is something that you can understand and relate to and understand how it's gone throughout history, but it's hard times create strong men. Strong men
Strong,
create good times. Good
good
times
times
create
create
weak
weak
men.
men, and weak men
Weak men
create bad
create hard
times.
times.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I
Yep.
feel like we're in this cycle right now where weak men have created hard times. So
Hmm.
we can only hope that it garners strong men, but we need to be willing to teach our men how to be strong.
Oh, yeah,
If you
definitely. And
want,
I mean, that's another piece. It's like the other side of this coin where I have a 16-year-old and 23-year-old son, and I know, like, I have to be extremely intentional about preserving and supporting and demanding their masculinity. I mean, they have a good
absolutely,
role model for dad too. That doesn't hurt. But yeah, definitely. I
absolutely.
don't want anybody making them feel like they are somehow in any way, shape, or form less for being all male. And that term toxic masculinity, no such thing. Toxic is
No,
weakness. Yeah.
I
People,
love
men
it.
who are
That's
aggressive when
true.
needed, give me that all day.
Absolutely. I love that. That's very, very true, especially as women. We want masculine men.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know any woman who doesn't want a masculine handyman who can do things around the house, who can really provide and protect.
Keep you
Absolutely.
safe. I mean, it's one of those very lizard brain things. You're, as a woman, you're going to look first for a man who is going to be able to protect you and your offspring. Like that's the very first thing, whether we know it or not. Like that's the appeal that a man is going to have to a woman. You can deny that all you want, but that's the way it is. And they're trying to undo that. I just don't understand. So, where do you think all of this movement in terms of removing femininity from women and removing masculinity from men, where do you think that's all going?
This has been a big thought of mine this past year. Really, the question of why. Why is this happening? Why are we introducing this to children? Why are we changing the language that we use? It's no longer mother. Why is it now birthing person? Why is it now chest feeding instead of breastfeeding? It's this question of why, because it doesn't make sense to abandon reality, abandon common sense, abandon the truth. Why? And if you look at it from, if you take a step back and look at what's really happening in regards to the denying of truth, to the changing of the language, to the silencing and the really the taking away of the freedom of speech, a lot of our freedoms, the breakdown of faith, the breakdown of family, it's really deeply rooted in Marxism.
It is.
Um,
Yep.
and I think it's really chilling to think about that we as Americans, the powerhouse, supposedly the strongest country there is, we're actively leading ourselves in this direction. Our administrators and our leaders in the White House, in DC, this is the direction that they're taking us. They want to control our thoughts. They
Well,
want to control our feelings.
one of the things that goes on if, and I mean, this isn't new, this is just the latest evolution of it, is they are destroying or contributing to the breakdown of the nuclear family so the government can replace it. I mean, we've
Totally.
seen that's the welfare state. That's what happened there because you can control those people then, and it's brutal. It's very tyrannical, soft bigotry, low expectations. So of course now you have high performing people and people who are just trying to go about their business, leading their lives, and you have to strip them of the things that are going to make them feel one within a community, and as if the nation isn't any longer the superpower, the big hitter, and nobody is going to fight for a nation that for which they don't have any pride anymore. That's what I think the end game
Totally.
is.
No doubt. And when you put it like that and when you spell it out with such clarity and such sense, it should make sense to anyone with a brain,
Yeah.
who has comprehension skills, that really understands this is not good. This is not good when we do
Mm-hmm.
the things that we're doing. It's not, you can look at any civilization in the past that's done it and you see where they end up. And that's the direction that we're going.
Yep, it is. So what else would you like our listeners to know, and how can they support you personally?
I think more than anything, it's fairly easy to believe the narrative that this is a non-issue, that it's not really happening, or it's just women's sports, it's just middle school women's sports. Who cares? It's not that competitive anyways. Oh my gosh, to believe it's not happening could not be further from the truth. This is happening all states, all sports, all levels, all divisions across the country, across the world. It's happening in many nations. Don't believe that narrative. I'm serious when I say this, I could list hundreds of examples off the top of my head of
Mm,
women losing out on opportunities and stories that I've heard from mothers calling me crying because their daughter's discouraged and doesn't even want to play her sport anymore because she's competing against a man, or because she feels worthless, because no one's listening to her and her feelings. I have countless stories from female athletes who have reached out, and again, it's those same feelings, the feelings of just dismay. They don't know what to do. They don't know who to talk to. The coaches who have reached out to me, who are in this position of, it's a hard space for them to be in.
yeah, a lot of
Um,
them, it's their livelihood, so they have to keep their mouth shut and do as they're told. That's got to be brutal when you have to go
totally.
against your convictions in order to keep food on the table.
Totally. And that's what a lot of people are facing. So don't believe the narrative that it's not happening. It couldn't be further from the truth. So I think that that's kind of my final thought on this stuff. And again, I could talk about this for hours. I
You
really
bet.
could. I feel so passionate about it, and really understanding that it's bigger than just women's sports.
Yeah,
That's what I touch on. Of course, it's where my personal experience lies, but it's a lot bigger. It's happening in prisons, it's happening in sororities, it's happening in shelters, it's happening in it's happening everywhere. This systemic erasure of women, really blurring the lines between gender. And again, look at what that does to past civilizations, and it's not good. We need to stand up, we need to be bold, we need to, before anything, of course, live a Christ-like life, but stand firm in the truth. It is compassionate to tell
the
people the
truth.
truth.
It
That
is.
is compassion. It's
Yep.
not compassion to lie and affirm anything
It's not
that's
true.
harmful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. The work that I do with women in the training that Tom and I have done for 10 years now, I see the struggles and the confusion based on what's being fed in pop culture. And I'm always shocked. Like conventional wisdom is leading people down a path of abject failure. And what I can't understand for the life of me is why so many people still subscribe to that sort of thing and think it's going to work.
I don't know. It's I hope people open their eyes, change their minds, open their hearts to really understanding what this is.
Yeah, sometimes I think which of these individuals or groups of organizations who are making these decisions, which one of their daughters has to be subject to this sort of loss of opportunity, or having their dignity stripped of them, or feeling physically threatened, or being physically harmed before it's going to matter to them. Who's the right person or group of people for that to happen to? I can't believe this is happening in the United States.
And that's what it's, unfortunately, that's what it's going to take. More women getting hurt, more women being traumatized, more women feeling worthless. That's what it's going to take for people to realize what this is doing.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and for your courage. I mean, I think it's really inspiring when you think you're the face of this movement now, and at a time when you could have taken your losses and gone on about your business and maintained a private life and not had any of the harassment that I'm certain you've had. You chose to act with courage. And that's what we need is more people, more women, and more men who act with courage when it comes to this issue to protect our women and our little girls. So thank you
No
so
doubt.
much for being the face of this movement. It
Of
changed things in
course.
our state in a huge way. I have to tell you, because it took 3 legislative cycles for us to convince the Republicans in South Carolina that this is something we needed to do. It's not a red or
Well,
blue issue, to your earlier point, because we have a Republican supermajority here, and it took us 6 years.
I know it. It is heartbreaking. That's a good word. It to have to convince people that women deserve respect, that women deserve safety, we deserve privacy, we deserve equal opportunity. To convince anyone of that is nothing short of really an abomination. So I appreciate the work you've done, and highlighting this and highlighting other issues, and really teaching leadership to people of all walks of life, women. That's how this is going to be curbed. And so I can't tell you how inspired I am by you.
Thank you so much. Safe travels in your upcoming very busy schedule, and I hope that we can stay in touch after this.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.